Hello, today we're going to be doing LeetCode problem 359, which is logger rate limiter. This problem states, design a logger system that receives a stream of messages along with their timestamps. Each unique message should only be printed at most every 10 seconds, i.e. a message printed at timestamp t will prevent other identical messages from being printed until timestamp t plus 10. All messages will come down in chronological order. Several messages may arrive at the same timestamp. So to run this, they're going to instantiate a logger class, and then they're going to run the should print message, passing in the timestamp and the message, and returns true if the message can be printed, or otherwise it'll return false. So let's look at this example. The input is logger and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 6 should prints. It's also passing in, well, it passes an empty array because that's the instantiation. Then it's going to pass in timestamp 1 with the value foo. And then timestamp 2 with bar, timestamp 3 with foo, and timestamp 8 with bar, and so on and so forth. So the explanation kind of does a good job of telling what's going on here. The first step is to instantiate the logger. Then it's going to check to see if we should print this message. We're going to pass in a timestamp of 1 and the word foo. So that's just going to return true because we don't have anything saved off yet. So, and then the next allowed timestamp is going to be 10 seconds plus the timestamp, so it'll be 11. Then we're going to pass in a 2 with the value bar. That will also return true because we don't have the word bar in the list yet. And then the timestamp for bar is going to be 10 seconds plus the timestamp of bar, which is 2, so 12 seconds. So then you see we pass in foo again, but the timestamp is 3. Well, we need the timestamp to be greater than 11, greater than or equal to 11, to be able to print foo again, because we need to wait the 10 seconds, so that's going to return false. Then we pass in 8 for bar. Well, we need to wait 10 seconds for that too, and that is at timestamp 12, so timestamp 8 is less than 12, return false. Now we're back to foo, with the timestamp 10 is still less than the timestamp 11, return false. And finally, timestamp 11 is greater than or equal to, it is equal to 11, which we're then allowed to reprint the word foo. And then it sets the next timestamp to the passed in timestamp plus 10 seconds, so that's 21. Okay, so here's our class logger, and we're not going to do anything with the constructor, so I'm just going to remove that. So make this private. We want a map of type string and integer, and we'll make that, instantiate that as a new hashmap. Why are we using hashmap? Well, we don't really care about the ordering of when the values go into the hashmap, so we can use it. So we can use hashmap because it's a little bit quicker than having to order the entries that go in. Okay, so now we're in this method. So we're going to check for, so we need to know what the timestamp is. So it's if timestamp is less than map get or default, use that method, and then we're going to use the passed in message. So message 0. So the map.get or default is basically you're going to get the value corresponding to the key in the hash map. So if the timestamp is less than the saved timestamp in the map, then we got to do some stuff. Then we're just going to return false because the timestamp has to be greater than the saved timestamp in the map. All right, so if it happens to be greater than, so now it's okay to put it. So now we're going to do map dot put, and we need to put this message, and we need to put the timestamp, and we need to add 10 to it. So that will give us the 10 seconds we need in between entries. And we just need to return true here, because we're able to successfully put something into the map. And that should be everything. So let's run it and see what we get. Okay, it was accepted. Let's submit it, and successful submission. Okay, so run it through the debugger here. We passed in, our first timestamp is 1 and the message is foo. Now, the timestamp is not less because we don't have anything in there yet, so we're going to put the message in there. So now the map contains foo with a timestamp of 1. Alright, I'm sorry, a timestamp of 11. Alright, now we're going back, and now we're passing in bar. And we don't have that value in the map yet, so we're going to put it in there and add 10 to the timestamp. Alright, so now we're passing in 3 for the timestamp, and the message is foo. Well, 3, if you remember, is less than the 11 that we need, so it's going to return false. Same thing with 8. With bar is less than the 12 that we needed, so that returns false. And now 10 for a timestamp with foo is still less than the 11 we need, so it returns false. And then finally, 11 is not less than the saved value of 11, and so then it puts 11 into the map and returns that. Okay, so the time complexity of this is O of 1. Basically, we're locked down with that 10-second timer, and so there's no way to speed that up. And then the space complexity is just O of n, so as you increase the input parameters, then that will increase the space needed to calculate those. And that's everything. I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.